So now that we have all of our text on our screen and we're ready to go, what we need to do now is we need to choose a font that's going to work well for this. Now, as building blocks go, if we try to move all these together, we have a little bit of a problem with our ascenders in the text here and our descenders. So we have a line of text here, and these letters nicely fit, like the E, the R, you can see that they all have this nice line here, but the F sticks up above these letters. So we call this an ascender in typography. And if you take a look at the word graphic, the H also has an ascender, the I, so they move above this line of the text. We also have something that goes below this baseline, which is a descender. So trying to fit all these together and see with all this different text is going to be really tricky. So there's one way that we can get around this, and that's by creating a text that has all caps. So what I want you to do is do a command, a control A, which is a select all command, and you can see that it's selected everything on my page. Now I'm going to go under the character palette, and at the bottom of the character palette, right here in the bottom left hand corner, we can see that we have an all caps button. All we have to do is click it. Excuse me. And you can see that all our text becomes uppercase. So what does that solve? It solves the ascender-descender issue that we have, because now all of my text, you can see, all fits like nice blocks together. So if I wanted to fit all of these things together, you can see that I don't have any space problems because everything lines up top and bottom. So now that we have all our text all created with all uppercase, now we probably want to choose a font to work with. So again, I'm going to do Control A to select all. If you click anywhere outside of any of this text, you can see that it deselects. So I want to select everything, so Control A. And under the character palette, I'm going to choose one of my favorite fonts, which is called Impact, for this exercise. And the reason why I like this font is because it's nice and bold and straightforward. It's a slab font, so it's quite structured and nice thick outline, or nice thick lines. It makes it really easy to use these as building blocks. So select all, Control A. I'm going to drag these actually onto what's called the pasteboard. So think of this as a piece of paper on your desk. Think of this as your desk. We're moving everything off to the side, and we'll move things onto our page with our black arrow and start working with them. So here's my reference guide, and maybe I want the word guide to line up with the left of reference, and I click on a corner anchor point, hold shift and drag. And now my text is aligned left and right. Now, is it really? Control plus will zoom in. And what I really should be working with are some guides. How do I know I'm aligned? And so if we're using the design principles, we have to keep all of the principles in mind. We have contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So in order to get the guides on our page that we can use to make sure we have perfect alignment, we need to do Control R. So the first letter of the operation we want to perform is to find our rulers. So Control R turns our rulers on. Control R actually also turns them off. It's a toggle key. So let's turn on Control R. We're going to move our mouse over into the left hand ruler and click and hold. As we hold, you can see that we're dragging, a line is attached to our mouse. And I'm going to drag a line here. Let's see, it's a 1/4 inch in, 0.225. And I'm going to drop it, let go of my mouse, and drop a guide here. Now these guides do not print, so we don't have to worry about them being there. They're just as a guide or a reference point for us to know that we have our work aligned. Now as you can see, as I zoom in even closer, devil's in the details, so make sure you zoom in. This letter R is not attached here, and I'm trying to move it and it's not snapping. It's just kind of moving around and it's avoiding lining up with that line. If you're having trouble with the mouse, you can always use the arrows on your keyboard to move one increment at a time, which will be very helpful for alignment. So now that I've done that, Control 0 will bring me back to full page. I'm also going to Control plus, zoom in again. I'm also going to put a guide at the end here of this letter E so that I can now see that I need to enlarge this a little bit more. Now, which alignment are we going for? You can see that this letter E is a little bit shorter on the top than it is on the bottom. So that's going to be a decision that you have to make, is where is the visual alignment here? I'm going to use the bottom of these E's as my visual alignment and click anywhere to deselect, Control 0 to zoom back to full page. And now I'm going to start moving other elements onto the page. So I can put graphic design here. Again, corner anchor point, shift click. And I can keep going in this method. Control, always holding the shift key. I'll zoom in on those as I need to once I get my images into place. So you can see that I've put this package together. So again, click on an element, use your arrow keys to shift and move them around. I'll need to zoom in because you can see already, even from a distance, that I am not aligned here. So what other words do I want to put on here? I'm going to make sure contrast. Repetition is the next one in the list, but I'm going to do something a little bit differently with that. These don't all have to go in any particular order as long as they're all represented. So I'll just place these on the page. So it's not that exciting yet, but once we start building this up and adding some color. Also, if you do end up with a block of space that's left over, you know, we are working on a personal logo, so we might be able to throw our personal logo also on our cover. Now, if I want to select more than one object, because I want to move all of these three things at the same time, I can click, shift, click, click. So if you hold down the shift key, you can select more than one object at a time, which allows me not only to move these objects, but also grab a corner anchor point and change their size all at the same time as well. So they're now being treated as objects. So let's see what I do with repetition here. Remember that nice repetition, that copy paste we learned in the beginning? You can do the same here. You can click on the element, hold Alt, you'll get your double-ended arrow, and I'm going to make a copy. And I'm going to Control D, Control D, Control D, and I'm going to duplicate that. It is the word repetition, so why not repeat it? You're visually communicating that this word is repeated. It's the word repetition. It's being very literal. Go ahead and have some fun with that if you wish. I also need to get my name on here somehow. And so as you can see, I'm using alignment and I'm just placing all my elements on the page. And I'm sizing them to fit the space. So if I can shift click to select more than one element, but I can also click with my black arrow and drag a box like so over what I want to select them as well. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out or how I want to play with it. Right now it's pretty boring, I have to say. And use my arrow key to nudge that into place. And it looks like I need to add a little more pizzazz to this poster. And it is in this particular poster that I am going to allow you some distortion so that you can fit all of your elements on your page and um, have even spacing around all of your elements. As you can see, we don't have quite even spacing here. So using my arrow keys, I'm going to nudge that into place. And what do I mean by even spacing? See the space between each one of these words? We want to create the same space between all of the text. So if you turn these into blocks like this, if this were a block and it was filled with black, how would all those blocks fit together? We want even spacing between all of our blocks. So as you can see, there's much more space here than there is here. So what we're trying to do with the text is we're trying to create even spacing. So if we have to distort a little bit in this case, this is the one place I'm going to allow you to do that, because usually we don't distort. But this is a little bit more artistic, so we are using stretching and manipulation here to our advantage, like this one. So I would spend a bit more time on this to make sure that all my elements are evenly spaced, and all my words are now on my page, properly represented. And I just need to, that's got to line up over here. You can see this edge. So what I would do is take the time to make sure everything's perfectly evenly spaced by zooming in, making sure everything is aligned to my guides. Again, the devil is in the details, as they say, so we want to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned and spaced. So that's what's going to give us that professional look that we're looking for, by following those simple principles of design: alignment, or contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. I'm going to hit save, make sure I save this. This is my reference guide cover. It's a .ai because it's an editable file. We want to be able to save a file, and I call them working files when they're editable, and we save them in the basic format of the program. So I'm going to save that to my desktop and hit save. When you see this window, you can just say okay to everything here. Okay. So the next video we'll start working with contrast in color.